Hi. Okay, I'm ready to start our final assignment. I am going to start out by saying that this assignment was not all that difficult to me. I think it would have been if I was teaching in the lower grades, especially the part about, or the prompt on the worksheet about age. I'm not sure about that, about when is a good time to bring up topics. An example would be in the teaching tolerance webinar. The speaker or the director of that, Hoyt Phillips, uses the example. I mentioned this in my response to I think Noel, mentions having fifth graders stand up in response to which gender they identify with. And that just seems like it's more what the adults would want to know, but I was thinking the kids probably just want to have their snack and go out to play. Okay, so I'm going to start out that's saying not many of the items on the LGBTQ worksheet come up in college. I teach college freshmen. That being said, I am very careful. I don't really have to be careful. I just don't do this. I don't make assumptions about my students. And I picked it out. I wrote it down here. It's a quote that I loved. And this was also from the Teaching Tolerance webinar. It's a quote by Adrienne Rich. She's a poet. And this pretty much sums it up. When someone with the authority of a teacher, say, describes the world and you are not in it, there is a moment of psychic disequilibrium, as if you looked in the mirror and saw nothing. And I think that's why we have a lot to do as teachers. So I want all my students to feel included, no matter my personal beliefs. And I do think good teachers can teach. I am Catholic and I taught in a yeshiva that had to be at a separate location at Georgian Court. And I got along very well with my students. And some people would say the women are suppressed, etc., etc. That's not for me to say. I was there to teach, and I did that. So I'll talk all day, so I'm going to make this short. I have the luxury of designing classes for myself, so I have my book here. I'm going to give you an example. I do a section on gender. I did find the gender handout interesting, especially about the single-sex classrooms. I would have to do a lot more reading and see a lot more data before I agree with it, because I've always been in the middle. I might look into that a little bit more because we have here in Monmouth County, the CBA, Christian Brothers Academy. And a couple years ago, a female one, I think it's Trinity Hall, opened in Middletown. And I hear rave reviews about it. So I'd have to do a lot more reading before I agree with that article and see data to back what they're saying. But I would like to say that I encourage investigating. That being said, both sides of a discussion rather than encouraging a myopic view that identity politics really encourage today. Like, you can only see one side, you get on Twitter, you go nuts, and that's that. So, for example, I'm going to talk about one section that I've designed. I use they say, I say, I love this. And here's an example of how I cover the topic of gender and how I try to teach an understanding of this. So I don't go into sexuality in my class. I teach in the LGBTQ sense. I'm teaching writing composition. I get to pick my topics. So this is, it's gender, but it's more in an equality in the workforce kind of way, or schooling. So I start out with lean in, but I actually use the TED Talk video to break up the reading. And it's great if you haven't seen it. It's a TED Talk, What Would You Do If You Were Not Afraid, based on Sheryl Sandberg's book. So she's speaking as the new voice of feminism about how women have been held back. Then I read Why Men Can't Have It All, a rather recent essay by Richard Dorman that uses statistics such as colleges are now 58% female and 42% male. An argument that the curriculum is more geared toward female friendly, even though we don't have the engineering, but there's huge recruitments going on for females, so etc. And then in the middle, I actually read Dig Deep, Beyond Lean In, and she's an old school feminist, Bell Hooks, who looks back on Sheryl Sandberg, who is the new face of feminism, but is also rather elitist, comes from wealth, and kind of, as Bell Hooks says, she talks the talk, but she's wealthy and always has been, and she's the CEO of Facebook, and she's lived the life, but like a lot of people, she's never been down and thinks that she knows the answers, which she does know some, and I personally really admire her. But that's I try as a composition instructor of 18-year-old students to expose them to multiple sides of an argument, and let them find their own voices, because there's so much repeating of information and such a fear of speaking up and just listening to your instructors without ever questioning that there might be another middle ground. So that's my response. I know for you younger teachers, you have your hands full with just the list of the LGBTQ activity sheet. I wish you all luck, and it's been nice knowing all of you. I hope to see you soon.